The war had been long and cruel. Across the stars, many empires had fought over territory, power, and pride. But humans, newcomers to the galactic scene, had surprised everyone. They didn't have the biggest ships or the most advanced technology. But what they did have was courage, and that was enough to make the galaxy take notice. Kane, a human warrior and commander of a small unit, had led one of the most daring missions of the war. His team had dropped behind enemy lines to rescue a group of alien civilians trapped in a neutral zone. The mission wasn't about Earth or territory. It was about saving innocent lives. That decision changed everything. The act caught the attention of the Galactic Council. A meeting was called on a peaceful moon called Velthar Prime. All major leaders and representatives were invited to discuss peace and the future. Among them was the ruler of the Lirathi Empire, Queen Zalara. Zalara was not just another leader. She was tall, graceful, with pale blue skin and silver markings across her face, marks of royal blood. She had ruled the Lirathi for over a decade, and was known for her strength, wisdom, and mysterious silence. Kane wasn't a politician. He didn't want to go to Velthar Prime, but Earth Command told him to represent humanity. He agreed. Still wearing his battle-worn armor, he stood among the polished and perfect diplomats from across the galaxy. As the meeting began, leaders discussed treaties, borders, and trade. Kane stood quietly, observing. He didn't speak much. His presence was enough. Everyone in the room had heard of the human who risked everything to save alien lives. Then it happened. Queen Zalara entered the chamber. The room went silent. Even among the powerful, her presence made others take a step back. She didn't walk like a queen. She walked like someone who could fight and win. Her eyes scanned the room slowly, until they landed on him. Kane felt that her gaze was sharp but not cruel, curious like someone seeing something rare. Zalara paused, looked at the Earth representative beside her, then raised her voice so all could hear. "I want him." The room froze. Her words echoed across the chamber. Some thought they misunderstood. Others whispered. The Earth diplomats looked at each other, unsure if this was a joke. Kane stood straight, his hand resting on the side of his armor. He didn't move. He didn't answer. He just watched the queen with a steady expression. Zalara spoke again, her voice calm but firm. "Not as a prisoner, not as a gift. As a guest. I want to know what kind of warrior risks his life for strangers." Now, it was clear. She wasn't making a demand. She was making a choice. And that choice shook the room. Some of the other alien leaders looked offended. A few smiled, amused. The humans looked tense. Kane broke the silence. "I'm just a soldier," he said quietly. "I did what anyone should have done." Queen Zalara's lips curved slightly. A smile, maybe. It was hard to tell. "But not everyone would have," she replied. And not everyone did. After the meeting ended, Earth Command pulled Kane aside. "This could open a door with the Lirathi Empire," the ambassador said. "If she wants to host you, go. Be careful, but go." Kane didn't like politics, but he understood orders, and something in the Queen's voice didn't feel like a trap. It felt like a test. Later that night, a silver craft arrived outside the human camp. 2 royal guards stood beside it. One of them handed Kane a message, written in formal Lirathi language. "The Queen invites you to walk among her stars." He sighed, grabbed his gear, and followed. The journey to the Lirathi homeworld was silent. The guards didn't speak much. Kane sat alone, watching the stars from the small window. He didn't know what waited for him, but he knew one thing. Queen Zalara was not a normal leader. She didn't act out of emotion. She had a reason, and soon he would find out what it was. When they arrived, Kane stepped out into a shining courtyard under twin moons. The palace of the Lirathi rose in silver towers that touched the sky. Flowers he had never seen glowed softly in the gardens. Guards bowed as he passed. No one spoke to him directly, but none looked at him with hate either. A servant led him to a tall chamber with clear walls, showing the stars. Inside stood Queen Zalara, wearing royal armor instead of a dress. She turned as he entered. "You came," she said. "I don't run," he replied. She studied him for a long moment, then spoke. "Humans confuse the galaxy. You're not the strongest, not the fastest. Yet here you are, surviving, winning, saving others. I want to understand." Kane tilted his head. "Understand what?" "What makes you fight?" she said, stepping closer. For the first time, Kane didn't feel like he was talking to a queen. He felt like he was talking to a warrior, and maybe, just maybe, someone who was lonely behind all that power. Kane was not used to peace and beauty. The Lirathi Palace looked like something from a dream. Tall towers made of shining crystal, gardens with soft glowing plants, and quiet halls where wind chimes played music without anyone touching them. But even inside this peaceful place, Kane's soldier instincts stayed sharp. He knew looks could be deceiving. His room was large, too large. A soft bed, a warm bath, and food prepared by quiet servants who never spoke unless spoken to. It all felt more like a trap than a welcome. Back home, soldiers slept on metal beds, not silk cushions. Kane walked to the clear window and stared out. From this height, he could see the stars stretching far into the dark sky. The view was beautiful, but he couldn't relax. He was still, unsure why the queen had brought him here. He didn't trust royal kindness. A soft knock came at the door. Kane turned quickly. The door opened, and a tall woman stepped in. Not Queen Zalara, but one of her royal advisors. A Lirathi woman with pale green markings and firm eyes. "You are requested to meet Her Majesty in the inner garden," she said politely. Kane nodded. He didn't ask questions. He put on his uniform jacket and followed the advisor through the glowing halls. Guards bowed to him. Servants stepped aside. He felt like a strange visitor in a place where every step was watched. The inner garden was quiet. Tall trees with silver leaves stood still under the moonlight. In the center of the garden, Queen Zalara stood alone, wearing a long robe made of shimmering blue fabric. Her hair was tied back, and a soft wind moved through the trees. Kane stopped, a few steps away. "You wanted to see me?" Zalara turned slowly. Her eyes were calm, yet powerful. "I want to understand," she said again. He raised an eyebrow. "Still trying to figure out humans?" "No," she replied. "I want to figure out you." Kane stayed silent. Zalara walked toward a small stone bench and sat down. She motioned for him to do the same. After a pause, he joined her. "In my empire," she began, "strength is everything. Leaders must fight, win, and never show weakness. But you saved people who had nothing to offer you. That confuses my people. And it confuses me." Kane looked at her. It wasn't about what they could offer. They needed help. That's it. But you risked your life. "That's what we do," he said. "At least, that's what I was trained to do." Queen Zalara studied his face. "Would you die for people you don't know?" Kane nodded. "If it means someone else lives, then yes." The queen was quiet for a long time. Then she asked a strange question. "Do you fear death?" He looked up at the stars. "Everyone fears it, but I don't let it stop me." Zalara leaned back. "Most warriors I know live only for their own pride. You live for something else." Kane shrugged. "Maybe." She smiled softly. "You don't speak like a hero." "I'm not." A silence settled between them, not uncomfortable, just thoughtful. The wind moved through the silver leaves again. The queen stood. "Tomorrow there will be a ceremony, a trial of strength. It is a Lirathi tradition." Kane frowned. "A trial?" "Yes. A test to see if a warrior deserves honor. I want you to take part." Kane crossed his arms. "What's the catch?" "No catch," she said. "Just a fight. One of my royal guards. A test of skill, not to the death. Cain looked at her with careful eyes. And if I say no? She paused, then answered. Then they'll believe. Humans are weak. They'll think I made a mistake by bringing you here. Cain didn't like being part of a show, but something inside him told him this wasn't just for the audience. It was for her. She was trying to prove something, maybe to her people or maybe to herself. I'll fight, he said. Queen Zalara gave a small nod. Good, you'll be treated with respect, and the rules will be fair. He looked at her. What happens if I win? She didn't answer right away. Then she said softly, Then they will see why I said I want him. Cain didn't reply. He stood up, gave a respectful nod, and turned to walk back to his quarters. As he left the garden, his mind was filled with questions. Why was this queen so different from the others? What did she truly want? Respect? Partnership? Something more? Whatever the reason, one thing was clear. This was no ordinary visit. This was a challenge, and Cain never backed down from a challenge. The morning of the trial came quickly. Cain woke early. He stood in the silent chamber of the Larathi palace and dressed in his battle uniform. The uniform was clean and simple, black fabric with Earth's symbol sewn onto his chest. It was more than clothing. It was a reminder of who he was and what he stood for. When he stepped outside, 2 royal guards waited to guide him. They led him silently down a long corridor, then into an open courtyard. Already, a large crowd had gathered. High-ranking nobles, advisors, guards, and members of the royal family stood around the edges, waiting eagerly. Cain scanned the courtyard. It was a wide, flat area, marked by a ring of polished stone. Everyone watched him closely as he entered. He could hear their whispers, curious and unsure. Then, Queen Zalara arrived. She wore royal armor, elegant and shining with silver and blue. She stood on a raised platform overlooking the arena. Her face was calm, but Cain saw something else, a quiet determination behind her eyes. A horn sounded. The crowd fell silent. Zalara raised her hand. Her voice was clear and strong. Today, a human warrior will face the trial of strength. He will show us the honor of his people. A wave of quiet murmurs passed through the crowd. Cain noticed some doubtful expressions. Clearly, not everyone believed in him. He ignored their stares and stepped into the circle. Opposite him stood a tall Larathi guard. The warrior was muscular with dark markings and powerful arms. He bowed slightly to Cain, showing respect, but his eyes were fierce and ready. The rules are simple, Queen Zalara announced. The first warrior to surrender or step out of the circle loses. There will be no deadly blows, only strength, skill, and courage. Cain nodded once. The guard did the same. Zalara lowered her hand. Begin. The guard moved first. He lunged forward fast and powerful. Cain was ready. He dodged, stepped aside, and felt the guard's strike pass close to his shoulder. He didn't strike back yet. He was watching, waiting for the right moment. The guard attacked again, this time swinging low. Cain jumped back, feeling the rush of air. The crowd gasped. The guard was clearly strong, fast, and skilled, but Cain had faced tougher opponents on battlefield after battlefield. Cain saw the guard's weakness clearly now. Overconfidence. The guard was sure a human would be an easy victory. He fought aggressively, using more energy than he needed. Cain kept dodging, carefully leading him around the circle. The guard became frustrated. His strikes became heavier, slower, less precise. Finally, Cain saw his chance. The guard lunged too far forward. Cain stepped quickly to the side, grabbed the guard's wrist, and used the warrior's own force against him, flipping him onto his back with a smooth motion. The crowd froze. Cain stood still, breathing steadily. The guard looked up, surprised and embarrassed, then quickly jumped back to his feet. He attacked again, furious now. Cain stayed calm. This was not just a test of strength. It was a test of discipline, and Cain was a master of discipline. Diao. Fight continued. The guard struck hard. Kane defended and countered smoothly, never losing control. Soon the guard's breath became heavy, his movements sloppy. Kane's plan was working perfectly. Queen Zalara watched closely, impressed. She saw something different about Kane, not just strength, but patience. He could have easily struck the guard down, yet he chose restraint. He was showing everyone that true warriors were not driven by anger but wisdom. At last, the guard tried one final, desperate attack. Kane anticipated it, moved swiftly aside and pinned the guard's arm behind his back. He applied just enough force to hold the guard in place without hurting him. "Do you yield?" Kane asked clearly. The guard struggled briefly, then sighed, deeply. "I yield," he admitted. Kane let go immediately. He stepped back respectfully and bowed slightly to his opponent. The crowd stayed silent, stunned by what they had seen. Queen Zalara raised her hand again. "The trial is decided. The human warrior has proven himself beyond doubt." Cheers began slowly, growing louder as the crowd accepted the truth. Kane had won, fairly and honorably. They applauded not just his victory, but his dignity. After the trial, Kane returned quietly to his chamber. He washed and rested, thinking over the fight. The victory itself wasn't special. He had won many fights before. But the way Queen Zalara looked at him afterward stuck in his mind. Later that evening, another gentle knock at the door. Kane opened it and found the queen herself standing. "There. You fought well today," she said quietly. "But that's not why I'm here." Kane looked at her, curious. "Then why?" She hesitated slightly, then stepped inside. "Because you showed my people what strength really means." Kane stayed silent, listening. Zalara looked out the window at the stars. "My empire needs to change. We've believed too long that strength is only force, power, only violence. But you showed us strength through honor, patience, mercy. That is something my people have forgotten." Kane spoke softly. "You already knew." She smiled faintly. "Maybe. But I needed them to see it." He nodded slowly. "They will." Zalara turned to him, eyes serious. "Some will not like this. My advisors might consider you dangerous now. Your way threatens their beliefs." Kane met her eyes firmly. "I'm used to danger." She nodded slowly. "I hope so, because what comes next will test us both." She stepped toward the door, then paused and looked back. "Thank you, Kane, for showing me the truth." Then she left, leaving Kane alone to think. This wasn't over. The victory was only the beginning of a bigger challenge, one that would change not only his life, but perhaps the entire empire. The days after the trial were tense. News of Kane's victory spread quickly through the Larathi court. Some celebrated the human warrior as a symbol of change. Others whispered warnings in dark corners. Uneasy with the idea that a human could challenge old traditions, Kane felt the shift. Guards watched him more closely now. Advisors who once nodded politely in his presence avoided his eyes. Even some servants seemed nervous around him. One afternoon, Kane was summoned to the throne room. He walked through tall silver halls until he reached a great chamber filled with soft light. At the far end sat Queen Zalara on her throne. Her face was serious but calm. "Kane," she said, "I brought you here because the council demands answers." Kane nodded. "I understand," she continued. "Many do not accept your place here. They say you are a threat to the Empire's traditions. They want you gone." Kane's jaw tightened. "And you?" Zalara looked at him deeply. "I want you here. Not as a prisoner, not as a trophy, but as my partner." Kane blinked in surprise. "Partner?" he repeated. "Yes," she said firmly. "This empire must change, and it needs someone like you by my side." Kane's mind raced. This was more than he expected. He was a soldier, not a diplomat. He had no desire for power or titles. All he wanted was to protect people. Zalara stood and walked closer. "I am offering you a choice." She gestured toward two doors. One leads back to Earth with honor and gifts. You will be free to return to your people. The other leads to the heart of the Lirathi Empire. You will remain here beside me, helping to build a new future. Cain looked at the doors, then back at her. What if I say no? He asked. She smiled sadly. Then you must prepare for a difficult journey. Because whether you stay or go, your life will never be the same. Cain thought of his home, the blue planet far away, his family, his friends. He thought of the wars he had fought and the people he had lost, and he thought of the Queen, strong, wise, and unlike anyone he had ever met. He made his choice. I will stay, he said quietly. Solara's eyes brightened. Good. Together, we will face what comes. The days that followed were filled with work and learning. Cain met the council members who doubted him. He listened to their concerns and shared his own experiences. He trained new warriors in human tactics, teaching patience and strategy instead of only strength. Not everyone accepted him. Some still saw him as an outsider, a weak human who could never understand Lirathi culture. But Cain never gave up. One evening, while walking in the palace gardens, Cain found Queen Solara waiting for him. She looked tired but determined. We have enemies within, she said. Some advisors are planning to remove you. Cain frowned. Remove me? How? They fear your influence, she explained. They want to keep the empire as it was, strict and unyielding. Cain clenched his fists. Then we fight. Solara smiled. In my empire, power is shown in many ways, not just battle. She stepped closer and took his hand. Trust me, she whispered. We will change this world, one step at a time. Cain nodded. For the first time since arriving, he felt hope. The next day, a new challenge came. A council meeting was called to discuss Cain's future. Tensions were high. Voices rose. Some demanded he be sent away. Others spoke in his defense. Queen Solara stood before them and made a bold announcement. Cain is not just a warrior. He is a symbol of what we can become. Her voice rang through the chamber. I will not allow fear to rule this empire. We will grow stronger with new ideas, new allies. The room fell silent. Cain watched as some members bowed in respect. Others looked away, but none dared speak against her. The Queen's words had changed the course of the empire. That night, Cain sat alone, thinking. He had chosen to stay with the Queen, to help her build a better future. But he knew the path would be hard. Enemies lurked in shadows. Danger was never far. But with Queen Solara by his side, he felt ready. The warrior who once fought for survival was now fighting for something greater: hope, unity, and peace. And in the stars above, a new story was beginning. The stars above the Lirathi Empire shone bright on the night of change. Cain stood beside Queen Solara on the balcony of the royal palace. Below them, the capital city pulsed with lights and life. But the peace was fragile. The empire was at a crossroads. For months, Cain had worked with the Queen to reshape the future. He taught new strategies to the warriors. He spoke openly with the council. Slowly, old fears began to fade, replaced by hope. But not everyone accepted the new way. That evening, a messenger arrived with urgent news. A group of rebels, angry at the changes, planned to strike the palace. Cain and Solara prepared quickly. Guards were rallied. Defenses strengthened. The Queen looked at Cain with steady eyes. This is the moment we prove our strength. Cain nodded. We fight not just for power, but for the people. When the rebels attacked, it was sudden and fierce. They stormed the palace gates, shouting demands. But the Lirathi guards, trained by Cain and led by Solara's trusted commanders, held firm. Cain fought in the front lines, moving with calm and skill. His human tactics confused the rebels. They had expected chaos, but found discipline. Solara stood tall, commanding her forces with strength and wisdom. Her presence inspired everyone around her. The battle was long but decisive. The rebels were defeated without unnecessary loss of life. Cain and Zalara showed that strength could be tempered with mercy. After the battle, the queen called a gathering. Intfor, the great hall, all the council members, warriors, and citizens came together. Zalara spoke first. Tonight, we defended not just a palace, but the future of our empire. She looked to Cain. Together, we showed that strength is more than force. It is courage, honor, and unity. Cain stepped forward. I came from a small blue planet far from here. I never wanted power or titles. I only wanted to protect. The crowd listened silently. But I learned something important here, Cain continued. True strength comes when we fight for each other, when we stand together. The hall erupted in applause. The people of the Lirathi Empire saw something new that night. A warrior from another world who was not their enemy, but their ally. In the days that followed, changes swept through the empire. Old laws were rewritten. New alliances formed. Cain and Zalara worked side by side, guiding the empire into a brighter future. The queen often smiled when she looked at Cain, not as a prize or possession, but as a true partner. Their bond grew deeper, built on respect and shared dreams. One evening, as they stood beneath the stars, Zalara spoke softly. Cain, you came to my world as a stranger. Now you are part of it, he smiled. I never imagined I would find a home among the stars. She reached out and took his hand. Together, we changed the course of history. Cain looked up at the vast sky. The same stars shone over Earth, his distant home. But here, with Zalara and the Lirathi people, he found a new family, a new purpose. The story of the human warrior and the alien queen spread across the galaxy. They were a symbol of hope. Proof that even in a universe filled with war and fear, courage, respect, and unity could light the way. Cain had not just survived the stars, he had changed them. And the queen who once said, "I want him," now stood proudly beside the man who had become more than a warrior. He was a legend,